This is the November meeting of the North Florida Ruby Brigade, and I am Evan Macknick. It is November 2nd, voting day. Who am I? Evan Macknick, as I said. I have a BS in IT from FSU. Graduated here in August of 2009, and my degree is centered on web development as opposed to networking. So most of my background has been in web development and a little bit of networking if I need to. I was hired after graduation by a company down in Sarasota, Florida. It's called Ad Relevancy, and they did a lot of internet marketing and that kind of thing. And I worked there until January 2010, where I was laid off and the company went under about 2 weeks after I was laid off. Since then, most of my work is basically in freelancing with Ruby on Rails, and I've had a little bit of other technologies if I need to, but most of the development has been with Rails. My website is broadmac.net. You can go there and find out anything else you want to find out about me, as well as I'm eMacknick on Twitter and also on Forest. What is automating deployments? Well, first we'll go over the tools. The tools you can use, obviously Ruby. That's why we're here. I tend to use Git. You can use any type of version control, SVN or CVS, but Git tends to be the de facto standard for Ruby developers nowadays. Chef or Puppet tend to be the most popular thing for configuring your servers in kind of an easy way, especially if you're doing multiple servers or multiple nodes or anything. And the actual deployment tends to be like Capistrano and Vlad the Deployer, though I actually did hear about a new one called ScrewCap. And with Capistrano and Vlad, you're doing like rake tasks type of things, whereas ScrewCap is not tied into rake, or I mean it can be, but it doesn't need to be. So if you have a project that you can't do rake with, that's a nice one to check out. Why do we want to do automating deployments? Well, basically the traditional methods of deploying your website sucks. The old method of having to log in like by FileZilla or any other FTP is kind of a pain in the butt, and with the shrinking amount of time that we have no time to do anything anymore. Trying to automate as much as we can is definitely a time saver, and also a lot easier, less prone to errors too. And also, I'm not a masochist. I like to make things easy, and as easy as they can possibly be. So how do we automate our deployments? What I tend to use lately is Rails, Git, Chef, and Capistrano. I played a little bit with Chef, but most of my deployments have been to Heroku, so I don't really have to mess around with that or Capistrano lately, but I have used these in the past. Rails. So we want to create a new app. Rails new my app. It's pretty simple. This is just kind of a example of how to go about creating a simple app and start configuring it to get it to where you actually started deploying it. After you have your app created, go ahead and change directives into your app. Initialize your Git repository with Git in it. Git add dot actually adds all the files that are in the directory. Do the initial commit. And when you're deploying an app, obviously you want to keep the source code somewhere, preferably not on your computer in case anything bad happens. So add a remote origin to your Git repositories, and then go ahead and git push to your new repository. Now Chef. Chef is a little thing along with Puppet, and they both kind of do the same thing but in a different way. Chef for me tends to be a little less of an overhead. Some of the basic commands you need for, say, for like Chef Solo, you can run it just for a solo developer. If you're not you're not doing a bunch of different nodes and deploying to a bunch of different servers and trying to configure them all. You can use Chef Solo, and so the command you'd use for that is -C for your config file. -J, you have to pass in JSON attribute or file to kind of tell Chef where your recipes are and which kind of gem files you need and everything. And then -R for the actual recipe URL. And any of these can be either on the actual machine or remotely. So an example of a Chef Solo command that uses solo.rb on the actual machine, and then a remote JSON and a remote recipes file is that one right there. Basically, it'll pull it. It'll go through the JSON file and pull in the chef recipes and configure it. A lot of recipes are actually out, on the chef wiki, and cookbooks contain a bunch of recipes, and you can go there and kind of figure out, anything. Most of the stuff you're going to need to do, whether it be setting up Nginx or Apache server. A lot of stuff has been done for you, so if you're writing your own recipes, make sure you actually need to. And then we go to Capistrano after you've got a server configured, and you've got you've got your SSH keys configured, so you can actually SSH into the server without having to pass in your password. Makes things a lot easier. Go ahead and go to your app, and then to create a Capistrano, or to Capify your app, basically, you just go Capify dot, and it'll create the deploy.rb file in there and a couple other files. And then all you have to do after you get everything configured is do cap deploy, and it'll go ahead and manage. Go ahead and pull from your repository and actually manage your different the different revisions to your source code. So you can always go back if you need to. I actually have a sample deploy file that I have used on our production app. Oh.
Does that still work?
I think so. There we go.
Awesome.
Okay.
I gotta try that.
Okay, so this is my deploy.rb file, which I used on the AIT and Biotech website, which is actually a Padrino app, which is kind of a framework that's crossed between Rails and Sinatra. It actually uses Sinatra. So you can see, you set up your user and your server and all that type of stuff, and a lot of this code I actually ripped from other people, so it may not be as neat and tidy as it needs to be, but it works. And this is actually an older version of Bundle. I think this is like either like 0.9 or 1.0, like right after it came out. So I was having issues with installing or using the actual local gems as opposed to trying to look for system gems. So that's why I passed in the -- local variable. But you can see, if you have everything set up for you, then it just makes deployments incredibly easy.
When you deployed, did you guys have your own production servers that you had root access to and everything, or you're doing it?
No, this is actually deployed to a shared host. It's a very small site and doesn't get a lot of traffic, so right now it's just on a shared host, and we can always move it to VPS if needed.
But they let you install your gems in your own home directory, right? You cache them.
Yeah, I mean I packed the gems using bundle pack.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and just basically told it to use all the gems that were packed in there.
Sure.
I did run into some issues, even though they were packed. I might run into an issue every now and then with something. So actually, if you look at my my config file, there's stuff that I passed in, like RSpec and stuff. I had to do actually like separating development and test, so it wouldn't look for those on the server. But it's on Rails Playground, which has actually been like, it's probably one of the better shared hosting ones. Like anytime I have a need for a new gym, I just let them know, and they usually get back to me within a couple hours, and they're like, okay, we install it for you.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a shared host for Rails stuff, they're really good. Not plugin or anything. All right, wrapping it up. Short and sweet. Basically, there's infinite types of configurations, and it really depends on your individual tastes, what kind of server you want to run. Obviously, just there's so many different types of configurations. It really depends on the job. But the good thing about like with Chef is you can keep basic configurations in one place. Like say you keep it on your own site, so you can always just pull from it if you keep creating the same type of server all the time or setting it up, then you can just pull it in and then maybe to make a change, and then there you go, you're already ready to go. And I actually found a guy asked me, why wouldn't you just want to go ahead and SSH in there and set everything up yourself? And basically, if you use a bash script to do this type of stuff, what happens if it crashes or whatever? Then you kind of have to comment out what's already happened and figure that out. Whereas Chef, I guess you can keep running it and running it and running it, and it already knows back where it left off if it crashed or anything. And basically, I say use what you like. I use Capistrano, but it's just as easy to go with Vlad the Deployer, which I was looking at. And kind of borrows a lot from Cap, but maybe in a lighter weight way. And then share your code. If you got something that isn't proprietary or whatever, you might as well just share it so other people can figure out what you're doing. Because I know I borrow a lot of code from a lot of other people, so I try to share as much as I can. Some of the resources that we used, basically, those Puppet Labs. You guys can check those out if you need to. Ops code is for Chef. And any questions?
Which version of Rails were you working with here?
This one is 3.0.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah. It was. I started the app on beta. I think it was like beta 3 or 4, and just kind of had to, upgrade it.
What kind of things do you need to keep in mind with Capistrano and Rails 3? Is it pretty much poured over from?
Yeah, I mean, actually, okay, so that Capistrano file was basically ripped from another one that I had done on a Rails 2 app.
Okay.
And just kind of had to change a couple of things, but for the most part, it worked right out of the box. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
I haven't run into major issues, but then again, lately I said the deployments that I've been doing have been like on Heroku and just kind of letting them take care of everything.
Yeah. Were there any things I haven't followed up enough with? Pretty much everything I've kind of followed with Rails 3 has been through other Ruby groups and through Railscast website. He's doing his presentations, and I just don't know if there's any new features in Rails 3 that help with deployment or with Capistrano.
One thing that really has been kind of nice is that Rails is now kind of aware that, or it kind of favors using Git. So you create a new app, you've got a Git ignore file already set up in there for you to ignore the kind of private stuff that you don't want to put up there. Either that or like temporary log files and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you don't want to put that in a repository if you don't need to. So
right.
It's been kind of nice. Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I did have another question, but on the side of, I don't know if Rails does anything in addition to help us deploy any easier. I mean, it lets you plug in, I guess, since it's called rack-based.
Yeah,
and plug in other applications like crazy.
I know there's some changes to environment, RB, right? There's some pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
all
changes.
that stuff
Yeah.
is like.
Yeah, a lot of it's
And I
changed.
started to look through it and I was kind of like, oh, this is more than, a half hour trying to port everything I've got. So I was just wondering if
It's
Capistrano
actually-
was something that's what I need to identify when I go through it.
I mean, I found it's a lot easier most of the time than instead of trying to like upgrade your app or whatever. It's just easy to create a new Rails 3 app and kind of move over what you can,
Yeah, I
what you
think
can move
that's
over. Because I mean, a lot of stuff has changed in terms of like application.rb is where you keep a lot of your application configuration instead of environment. I mean, it's a lot of that stuff has changed.
Right.
So I said, I've tried doing Rails upgrade and it's really been a pain. And I just create a new app.
And you mentioned Heroku, so they've got the .gems. That's sort of the way they, obviously you got, for Rails 2 apps you had it in sort of config gem statements within the environment RB, but with Heroku they have that .gems deployment file that has where you list off all your gems that you want to include in your.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Bundler,
Okay.
helps things immensely.
I have not used that, so I'm not.
Yeah, that's something you definitely should check out. Because that makes it like the Heroku servers are aware of the bundle file, so they basically you have Bundler set up with your gem file in there. It just basically looks at that and say, okay, this is what we need. We'll just pull it all from here. And I've only run into a couple issues with them in terms of like in terms of stuff that wasn't on their server, and so it kind of crashed the app. But that was a few months ago when Rails 3 hadn't been released yet. So.
Okay. All right.
I think the Heroku will read directly from your gem file. So before you used to need that .gems file or something in addition to your regular Rails application, whereas now with Bundler you just use your regular gem file,
Okay.
and that's where it gets all your gems from. You don't need that separate file.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good to know.
Yeah, I mean Heroku just basically pretty much does everything for you.
Yeah.
So.
I use two other projects. So.
Yeah, I've got actually I think I'm about to launch 2 more production apps on that one. I've got one running right now. So, like my website runs on Heroku. Yeah, I've got one more that's going to go up probably this week, and then another one that's going to go up in a few months. So.
Busy, man.
Just little personal sites,
See you back next week. I made my first million.
Eventually, right? Anything else, guys?
Okay, so let's say you're deploying, you're starting out a new project. You got a development server where that you use for, let's say, user acceptance testing, and you got a production server where you actually deploy your final releases.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we found, just in addition to what you said, was we use Capistrano extensions,
Okay.
and basically that gives you a little folder, a little deploy folder inside your config folder.
Mm-hmm.
Inside that folder, you put staging, production, so forth.
That's
Okay.
what we did.
Yeah.
It's very helpful because then you can do cap deploy and then production or cap deploy, staging, whatever.
Well, I was actually looking when I was researching this stuff. Vlad actually, you can if you separate that stuff out in just your deploy file, you can go Vlad deploy like production.
Well, you don't need a separate.
Yeah, then it'll deploy to your staging or to your production or whatever. However you have it set up, and I guess it knows environment variables and stuff too. So.
Well, and Vlad, will it use a similar directory structure that Capistrano does, where you have like
Yeah,
releases shared and all that stuff?
Pull it up. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool if we don't have to have something extra.
Yeah, the one thing about Capistrano is it feels like it's sort of reached its sort of acceptance, and nobody's really pushing it forward or trying to. I haven't seen a lot of activity.
That's kind of where this comes in. Is basically they're
sort of,
Capistrano came around and everybody was like,
exactly what you're.
yeah, Capistrano came around, everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and then Vlad's like, and then Capistrano's kind of grown to be like this huge thing. People are just, it's just massive now.
I think the developer for Capistrano even gave up, didn't give up, but he asked for new maintainers to come by.
That's the thing. It's
I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
I guess what I'm saying is it's pretty stale. It's like there hasn't been a lot of innovation or like taking it further. Since the original, let's get it all up and going. And I'm sure that a lot of people internally, these bigger shops, they probably have their own extensions and things they've done, or they may have written their own.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, like, this thing, they tend to favor SVN, but
Yeah.
you can obviously set it with the variable. But so this is your, this is kind of quick and dirty, and obviously there would be more. You'd have to, change a couple of things in there, add a couple of things in there. But this is kind of what they're trying to show you with Vlad, is that it simplifies a lot of that stuff and kind of slims it down a bit.
It looks like you could port that really easily from Capistrano.
Yeah, this
part
one
of
is migrating from Capistrano
Oh, cool.
to Vlad. It said even you can if you already have a Capistrano deployment set up, you can migrate your stuff, or you can kind of change the stuff around to work with Vlad and just start using it. It'll actually use your same directory structure and everything, and already knows about your revisions and stuff.
Nice.
Kind of plug and play.
What does it add to Capistrano?
I don't know what it adds to Capistrano per se, but
Other than being shinier and newer.
Right, yeah,
Right.
drier is always what I'm looking for, yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So here we have like multi-config environment, like I was talking about. So you got your beta, dev, production. You have that all set up.
Right.
You right here at the
Oh, that's kind of cool. So you can do all your migrations right there.
mhm.
Capistrano probably does that.
Yeah, Cap, you can do deploy migrations with Cap,
Man, I never used that.
but it's like I've used it a couple times.
Is it? But does it work?
Yeah.
It works well.
Yeah, I tend to like to do migrations out on the server, just 'cause I like to watch what's happening, and I don't know, I guess be on there, but that's just me being old school.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little scared to.
Yeah,
Let
I don't like to hand
migrations
everything
handle
off,
stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's what I was checking out, and actually, I'll show you this real quick. Maybe I didn't save it. So yeah, this is ScrewCap, and I literally just heard this one day on Ruby 5. But really easy, and doesn't really give you as much out of the box that you configure everything. But if you have, say, like a simple Sinatra app that you really don't need all the stuff that Capistrano is gonna give you, that might be a good option. You guys got anything else for me?